Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Chasing Psychological Safety, where we talk about all the things that are going to keep us afloat and competitive in this probably even worse period coming ahead. So what we wanted to talk to you about again today was impression management. We do that regularly, and so you know, we're going to be doing that a number of times again. More so, we're going to try and make that correlation for you between impression management and any type of impediment towards psychological safety and what that will mean for your business should you be ignoring them. So in the next few weeks, we're going to potentially sound like we're scaremongering. We don't think so. We think we're providing a public service by reminding everyone that, in particular, coming out of the pandemic and going into the recession, which are the two big challenges we're all faced with this year, we're going to be needing it more than ever, the attention to people, the focus on the people practice, and more importantly, the idea of psychological safety. So anything we can all do so that we stop ourselves from the negative behaviors of psychological safety, which are then when you are fearing looking a certain way. So for instance, if you're afraid of looking ignorant, if you're afraid of looking incompetent, if you're afraid of looking negative, or if you're afraid of looking intrusive or unprofessional or disruptive, if you're afraid of those things, if you stop yourself from saying something, that's the negative behavior that will stop you from speaking up. And speaking up is essentially what we expect out of our team members so that they are psychologically safe. That's a positive behavior. The negative behaviors are the ones that we are quoting. So what we would like to do is kind of unpack that, as in what it means in a team setting, and also what you can do to operate on those terms. So I'll just ping it over to Fiona and say, is it always that psychological safety depends on never doing any impression management?
No, it certainly isn't. I think you've articulated perfectly there that psychological safety is the headline, the positive behavioural group norm that we're looking for in teams that drives performance, drives financial outcomes, drives innovation, and drives the resilience that will get us through difficult times like this. Impression management is the less talked about, but really, really important, critical, what it actually looks like when, the reasons why people don't speak up. And when people don't speak up, we miss crucial bits of information, crucial bits of input, crucial errors that could have been flagged early and sorted out much earlier on. So can it be positive? Can it be negative? We're very focused on helping teams to address the negative side of it, but it isn't always negative. So when people impression manage in a positive sense, that can be really useful. That can be really great for team health. So if you have fantastic ideas and you're really super keen to share those with your team, and you're giving forth, you're impression managing to an extent because you want to show off all the great ideas that you've had, but in a positive sense. If you are talking to people about the skills that you've got or the skills that you've built, or you're sharing learning, that's impression managing in a really positive sense. And all of those things should continue and are really healthy behaviors. Impression management in the context of what we want to shift in teams to build stronger psychological safety in teams is the negative version of that. So it literally means when people are not speaking up for fear of appearing incompetent, ignorant, negative, or intrusive. Any four of those reasons. If there's ever a moment where you feel either you or somebody in your team or someone around you is not speaking up because of that, you should ask the question, is there anything else you wanted to say? Is there something you wanted to share? It's those moments that are going to start building the psychological safety in your team and really drive that performance and really support us through the next 6, 12 months, however long this challenging period that's upcoming is going to take for us.
Yes. And as ever, when we talk to you, we tell you what we've learned by building the software, but we also tell you what you can keep an eye on, as you say, manually, right? If you do psychological safety with pen and paper instead of software. But just so that you understand what we've been researching and why we have done various features will mean that you can then translate that thinking into your own people practice in your team. So you don't actually, again, I'm saying it for the 10th time, you don't have to buy our software, but please do if you care about your teams. But we will tell you what we've made and why. So in our case, we have in the dashboard that the team leader sees and that the team shares with the team leader in a meeting, we have a number of questions that are being, or rather a number of answers that are being highlighted as pertaining to impression management, and they are very clearly framed as alarms. So essentially, if you might have 3 answers or 5 or 6, or a few of the questions that the team have answered indicate that there was some impression management happening. And so on the flip side, from the point of view of the team member, we will ask things like, have you felt in the last week that you stopped yourself from saying something? Or have you sometimes wanted to contribute something and you stopped because you were afraid of looking like you didn't know something, or because the team would have thought you were not very knowledgeable or very competent? Or have you felt it wasn't your place to speak up because of various reasons? So we ask those things of the team members. And so what I wanted to highlight is 2 things. Number one, they're alarms because they are of a much more urgent nature than any of the other indicators that we measure in psychological safety in our software. Meaning, we measure things like, as you maybe know, things such as resilience and flexibility and learning and courage and openness and engagement. And all of those, to a degree, contain whether or not people have done any impression management in the time that has passed. But by the time they reflected, it would have probably been too late, in the sense that it would have taken time for those indicators to change. And in that time, those behaviors would have crept up even more. So it's really important to us that the team themselves look at this and say, oh, wow, last week, loads of us were afraid of looking incompetent. And for the record, nobody knows who's answered what. Every question is incognito, every answer is being aggregated and it's going blind. But you know that there have been instances and moments when people were afraid not to look a certain way, so they have stopped themselves from contributing. So the reason they're alarms, again, it's because it's urgent. And the second reason is, which is, we'll be honest, it's almost accidental, but we've noticed really improves the way people behave, is the fact that when we ask the question is when we give that person a moment to reflect on their behavior again and to very briefly go, oh, wow, I did stop myself last week for fear of appearing negative. I just didn't want to say it so that no one thinks I'm trying to rock the boat. And even if they've done nothing about it and that moment has passed, they might be a lot more conscious about it in the future. They will have a brief moment of reframing and thinking the world wouldn't have disappeared if I just said something. So it offers you as an individual, as a team member, that platform and that moment of rethinking about your behavior, the negative behavior that stopped you from the positive one.
Exactly. And I think what we wanted to do here, just to wrap up, is to reinforce that point that people are talking a lot about psychological safety. People are really getting and understanding why it could be the savior of their team and their business in the next 6, 12, 18 months. What we're wanting to get to now is, you know, what you can do and what you need to reflect on to be that team, to have that psychological safety. So if you can just keep an eye on those moments of fear, keep an eye out for them in yourself, as Dwayne has just said, keep an eye out for them in others, and ask the question to yourself, why did I do that? No, I'm going to speak up. I'm going to role model that behavior for myself and for the rest of the team and for other people, just gently saying, is there anything else you wanted to add? Is there anything else you wanted to bring to the conversation? And that could make all the difference going forward. So best of luck.
Thank you. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.